What's on Tap is brought to you by Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the NFL. The matchups with the highest point totals here, guys. And let's start with the Bucs traveling to Detroit to take on the Lions. The Lions are 7.5-point favorites in this game. But more importantly here, Matthew, the point total is set at 51.5, an absolute whopping point total. Let's start with the Bucs here. Is Rachaad White just entirely relying on his receiving production to have a big game?
I don't know if it's entirely, but in this game, I think probably, just given how good Detroit was last week against the run. They were, after week one, they were the 8th best run defense in the NFL, going up against Kyren Williams and the Rams. So feels like in a game in which the Lions are 7.5-point favorites, the Bucs are over a touchdown underdog, feel like they get out of this game quickly, and running is going to be tough matchup, and then they're down. But to your point about the passing attack here, he had a 20% target share last week against my Commanders, right? 6 for 75, the second most receiving yards among all running backs in week number 1. And eventually I think that job turns to Bucky Irving. I faded Rachaad White in the preseason. I'm still standing by that. I don't think he's particularly efficient. I think Bucky Irving's the better running back. But for week number 2, give me some Rachaad White. He's my running back 15.
Yep, I like that. I also think this is going to be a big game for Jared Goff and the Detroit passing game, which never really got on track last week with this Bucs defense, and Denny Carter will be very proud of this. This Bucs defense is pass funnel. They had an elite run defense last year, suspect secondary, struggled against the pass, and more to the point, like Jared Goff played them twice last year. You know what he did in those games? He lit them up, 43 pass attempts in the playoffs for 287 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then when they played earlier in the season, 44 pass attempts, 353 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like, the way to beat the Bucs is through the air. Jared Goff, amazing when he's in a clean pocket. Bucs don't really have a pass rush, so I think the Goff's going to cook.
And on the Bucs side of it, I mean, point total of 51.5 here. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, favorable matchups in this one too. And Baker, he'll say it, he's just going to keep throwing them the ball.
Yep, absolutely. I think we saw, and it was great to see Chris Godwin look somewhat rejuvenated last week. Mike Evans is just going to do, Mike Evans is like the picture of Dorian Gray. Like, he's just going to do what he does every single week until proven otherwise. So I think in a game where they are 7.5-point dogs, they're probably going to have to be throwing. I think this game is going to resemble the playoff game from last year.
Yeah, and game is in Detroit, so you love that in the Dome. Perfect conditions for a shootout.
Our next game with another big total, Rams at Cardinals. The Cardinals are favored by a point in this game over Sean McVay's Rams. Obviously, Puka Nacua hurt, but Cooper Kupp is fantasy royalty. The point total is 48 in this one. Matthew, what's the panic level on Marvin Harrison Jr. after a really disappointing week 1?
I think you've got to be a little bit panicked. I'm not ready to, like...
Because of how he looked.
Just how he looked. Now, again... you know, I think a lot has been made of he was wide open and Kyler didn't see him. The fact is if you go back and you watch the All-22, Kyler was A, under pressure, and B, he just moved through his progressions already by the time that, Harrison was open. So it looked a lot worse than it actually was.
Yeah.
I know
it was a blown coverage as well. It's not like he beat his man. It was wide open. It was just like
standing
there.
there.
Well, that's the thing. A tweet that's been sort of going around and making the rounds is talking about, like, his speed, right? I think that, and I forget who put this out there, so I apologize.
I believe Next Gen Stats.
Next Gen Stats, okay. He had a max speed of 16.7 miles per hour, which was 1,699th out of 1,730 wide receivers.
This from Seth Walder right
Seth
here.
Walder as well. My old colleague at ESPN, Seth, does great work. Shout out Seth Walder. He played wide receivers that played at least 25 snaps in a game since 2023, as you can see it there on your screen. MHJ ranks 1,699th out of the 1,730 games played by individual wide receivers since the start of 2023. Now, I want to ask you about this, Connor, because my feeling on Marvin Harrison Jr. is, and you study the tape so much better than I do, but and you grind prospects like nobody's business, but my feeling on him was, like, this is not a guy that ever won on speed.
No.
Like, I mean, the long-standing joke's probably not the right word, but the long-standing story, of course, is it's like, everyone forgets, like, Jerry Rice had an awful combine time.
Right.
Like, the greatest wide receiver of all time
He's like
was
a
another
4.6 guy.
Like, it was a 4.6 guy.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Like a guy that probably wouldn't have been drafted in today's NFL, who's the greatest wide receiver of all time. But Harrison, to me, always won on elite route running and just, incredible ball skills and control. Never... He was never Xavier worthy.
No, he's not a 4.3 guy. He's probably not a 4.4 guy. He has build-up speed. He's a big-bodied guy that he gets going down the field. And I know a lot of people are looking at it and go, he didn't run at the combine. He didn't do anything at the combine. He didn't really even do media at the combine. I think that was more of a point of, I don't need to do any of this because I'm Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm standing on the tape of what I've done at Ohio State. I don't think he's slow, right? I think he's a 4.54 guy if you had to guess his speed, 4.56. What I saw on tape is a guy that looked nothing like the player at Ohio State, which tells me I don't know if it's a confidence thing within an offense, which let's not forget, a couple of years ago, and I know it was preseason, Jamar Chase looked dreadful as a rookie in preseason, and then his rookie season eventually turned around. He was amazing, and he's Jamar Chase now. So I think this will turn the corner, but it could be confidence. I don't know if it's anything health-related. He doesn't look anything like the player he was at Ohio State yet.
Yeah, to me, the concern is like maybe it is confidence-related, I'm sure, on some of the routes that hurt him, but like I don't think it's confidence to like run fast in a straight line, right? And he wasn't able to do that against the Bills. Like the speed numbers don't really lie. And to your point, like, yeah, he's not the fastest guy in the world. It's not like he's slow at Ohio State. Like, it's not like he's super slow. Like they're running like jet sweeps for him and stuff. Like he was doing some stuff. And just like watch his highlights at Ohio State. He looks like a different human to the guy against Buffalo who looked like Steelers Allen Robinson. So I don't know if it's just like 1 week he just had like a niggling thing and it's just like in first game and it all kind of piled up and he just was lost out there. So I'd give it another week before fully sounding the alarm, but certainly some bad signs.
Yeah, I'll give you, but I would think that two things. Number one is like if you saw the clip earlier from Galaxy Brains and our friend Roto Pat and Denny talking about this, the quote about Marvin Harrison saying like it's not my job to get him the ball. From Kyler. I'm sorry. The quote from Kyler saying it's not my job to get him the ball. It was the first time we played together. Blah 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 blah. I'm just telling because that has been blown up by the media and because you're talking about two big name players in Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. My guess is there is going to be a massive attempt to get him the ball, to feed his guy the ball. Kyler's not a dumb guy. Kyler's going to know, like, when you're a quarterback, you keep your wide receivers happy. The other thing that I'll say is, and I'm just curious what your reaction is, I won't tell you what my answer was, but a buddy of mine, literally on the way in to work today, texted me. He said, pick two, Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr., Ladd McConkey. I've got those three guys on my team. I need to pick two for this week. So I'm curious, like, McConkey scored a touchdown. Neighbors obviously look good. Good matchup for Neighbors against the Commanders.
Neighbors is in.
Right.
Like that's he doesn't even need to be in that question.
McConkey's playing the Panthers, who also look terrible.
Yeah. So what would you do?
I
still have to regress a little bit.
Right.
Preseason expectations.
It has to be a little bit more, higher ceiling than that. Like I'm in a league right now where I might bench him if Charbonnet is the guy with Kenneth Walker down. If that happens, that's the status I'm at. Not a Ladd McConkey game because I just don't trust the Chargers' pass offense enough yet.
That's what I said to him. I said,
your point's right though about getting him going.
Right, but what I said to him is, I said to my buddy, I said, I completely get the question. I understand it, but I'm still sticking by Harrison for one more week. And if he has another 3-target, 1 reception on 3-target game, then we can hit the panic button. But he's too talented, and I do think they will make an effort to get him the ball because it's become such a story. Because, by the way, they're playing the Rams, and they're going to need all their best weapons.
Yep.
It can't be all on Greg Dortch's shoulders, Jay. It can't all be on his shoulders.
No, and the mainstream media will never tell you that.
Yes.
I think, it's a tough matchup against Cleveland for Brian Thomas Jr., but if Brian Thomas Jr. was playing the Panthers, I'd be starting Brian Thomas over Marvin Harrison this week.
That's fair. Yep. That's fair. But, again, McConkey had a nice game, but without that touchdown, it's like a whatever game. And
the script of that game might be kind of gross, too, when you look at it. The script of this game I really like, Rams and Cardinals.
Oh, sure.
Should be a lot of passing, a lot of points. Obviously, we're talking about a 48-point total.
1,000%. Like, the Chargers are going to have a good defense, and, they may not – it may be all J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards because they don't need – and, a defensive touchdown for the Chargers. They're not going to need to throw against Carolina.
Our next game here, guys, Bengals at Kansas City. The Chiefs are favored by 6 points in this game, despite the Bengals looking dreadful against New England week 1. The point total is at 48. Jay, can this Cincinnati passing attack get back on track this week, or are we going to have to wait a little longer?
I just don't know what to make of this Bengals offense. I don't know why they looked as bad as they did against the Patriots. I understand that there's no T. Higgins and Jamar Chase didn't practice a great deal, so he was a little bit limited, but still you would hope to see a little bit more. And to me, the biggest concern about this offense it always revolves around Burrow and his health. And he just didn't look right against the Pats. And it didn't look as bad as it did at the start of last year, where it felt like he couldn't move. And he was able to do a little bit, but still, this offense, it just didn't seem like it was clicking overall. And now they get a really tough Chiefs defense. And we saw what the Chiefs did to Lamar Jackson, particularly in the first half, where Lamar Jackson had an ADOT of like 2 yards. So a bit concerned about Burrow. I have 4 quarterbacks in the league of arseholes, where I have Joe Burrow, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, and Justin Fields.
Yeah.
I'm starting Justin Fields over Joe Burrow at this point. And then I think I'm probably going to lean Burrow over Mayfield and Darnold, but it's close, which is a concern given I took him in the second round.
It absolutely is a concern. I mean, and by the way, I Fields is a top 10 play this week. I have Joe Burrow at QB 12. Now, if there's a positive to look for, he's played 4 career games against the Chiefs. That includes the playoffs. He's had at least 250 passing yards in every game. And you would think, like, they know if they're going to keep up with the Chiefs in what should be a track meet, they're going to have to throw the ball. Having said that, in week 1, Joe Burrow was 26th in average depth of target, right? He had only 3 passes that went 15 or more air yards. Like, it's hurting Jamar Chase. It's hurting the entire offense. And I don't know if that's because of the wrist. I don't know if it's because he just didn't have any time because the line was just getting dominated by the Patriots. I don't know if that's because no one else was getting any, that's just not Andre Yoshevich's game, is to get deep, and T. Higgins isn't playing. So that's just, I don't know. It's a concern, but I get it. Joe Burrow is a shaky low-end QB1 this week, and I get the concern.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotorWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.